Europe is preparing for Europe is preparing for the Great Tribulation. Israel's preparing for elections on September the 17th. And President Trump is preparing to release his peace plan that could begin the final 7 years to Armageddon. We're going to explain all of these developments on today's edition of End of the Age. So much going on. It's absolutely incredible. First of all, Europe is getting ready for the Great Tribulation. What in the world do we mean by that? I'm looking at an article right now from the Free Beacon. It's entitled, Europe Poised to Put Warning Labels on Jewish-Made Products. And here's what it's saying. The European Union is poised to mandate that Israeli products made in contested territories carry consumer warning labels, a decision that could trigger American anti-boycott laws and open up what legal experts describe as a Pandora's box of litigation. Now, let's make sure everybody understands what we're talking about here. There's been a lot of dispute about what happens to products that are produced in the West Bank, what the news likes to call occupied territories, what Israel calls disputed territories. Europe says those are occupied territories, therefore we want to boycott these products, so we're going to put a special label on them. That's what this is all about. Now, they're not going to put a special label on any products produced by Palestinians in the same disputed territories because Europe has already decided they're not disputed, that this is Palestinian territory occupied by Israel. The article goes on to say the Advocate General of the European Court of Justice recently issued non-binding opinion arguing that EU law requires Israeli-made products to be labeled as coming from settlements and Israeli colonies. The decision was seen as a major win for supporters of the anti-Semitic boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, or BDS, which seeks to wage economic warfare on Israel and its citizens. Now let's pause to make sure everyone understands. BDS is a movement started by the Palestinians themselves called Boycott, Divest, and Sanction. They're encouraging everyone to buy nothing from Israel, to boycott Israel, to divest of all stock. Many organizations have sold all stock in any Israeli companies, and then to sanction Israel. To don't buy anything from them, don't sell anything to them. It's the BDS movement. He goes on to say pro-Israel activists, as well as the Jewish businesses involved in the legal dispute, see the decision as an ominous warning sign that they say is reminiscent of Holocaust era boycotts of Jewish businesses. And of course, that is exactly what it is. So it's so important that we understand that what happened pre-Adolf Hitler is this very thing. They started boycotting Jewish firms, boycotting Jewish businesses, and before long, none of the Germans would go there. Well, here we see this all over again. Here we are, what are we? That was back in the late 30s. So here we are 80 years later. It's like the same thing's coming around. Now, this wouldn't be so ominous if it weren't for the fact that the Bible specifically talks about a great tribulation that's coming, another Jewish Holocaust. The Jews like to say never again, and I wish they were right. But the bad news is it's going to be again. And the center for it is going to be Europe. That's exactly where all this is taking place. Because the Bible teaches that the Antichrist is going to come from Europe and that will be his base of power. So we can already see them wanting to go against Israel. Now, the Advocate General's opinion said that goods produced by Muslims are to be labeled from Palestine, and goods that, let me see, where was I? And goods produced by Jews labeled as coming from Israeli colonies. Goldstein said both people are living in the same geographic location, and yet Jewish goods are being treated differently. So that's what we're dealing with right now. That's what we're facing right now, and it is so difficult for the Jewish people to face, because here they are. We're talking about people, private people, businesses, and yet they raise crops, and now all of a sudden they're getting labeled with a bad label that most people won't buy their goods as a result. Now that would be just like things from the Soviet Union. Well, as a matter of fact, let me describe this to you. Now, can you imagine a situation where plastic cups imported from China must be labeled, "This country has a one-child policy," or gas from Russia must be labeled, "This is gas from a country that illegally occupies Crimea," or products from the United States require the labeling, "The U.S. engages in capital punishment and is building an illegal border wall"? That's what we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen.
We've seen Bible prophecy fulfilled like never before. From the halls of the United Nations to the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, Endtime Ministries continues to reveal the Bible prophecy in the news headlines around the world every day. Whether it's through our broadcast or online at our Jerusalem Prophecy College, your gifts enable us to put vital materials in the hands of those who need it most. Because of you, we continue to replace fear with faith in the hearts of Christians around the world. We will continue to see prophecy come to pass at an even swifter pace. We need your support. Your donation of any amount enables us to continue to broadcast and be a voice in the ever-growing censored media. To become a partner or give a one-time gift, visit endtime.com or call 1-800-END-TIME right now. That's 800-363-8463. Go online now. Visit endtime.com.
Have you had a longing to visit the cities where Jesus healed, ministered, and taught every day? Judy and I would like to invite you to travel to the wonderful land of Israel. Experience the Word of God in vivid color while walking down the roads of the Holy Land with us.
When you are ready to experience Israel, we recommend you travel with Endtime Ministries. You will not only experience historical and present-day Israel, you will also learn about the prophesied future to come. It's as if we traveled back in time to visit a different era and discovered ourselves in an ancient time. The tour is very well organized, the accommodations are first class, and the food is delicious. If you have ever had a desire to visit Israel, there is no better time than now. Ann from Colorado.
To sign up to receive your Experience Israel 2019 packet, call Adrian or Jana at 1-800-ENDTIME or go to endtime.com. We can't wait to experience Israel with you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, what are we actually saying here? When we talk about all these people, especially from Europe, but we have many of them in the United States of America as well, but all these people, especially from Europe, that are ready to freeze out Israel again, to boycott Israel. What's this all about? Now, the article says, can you imagine a situation where plastic cups imported from China must be labeled, "This country has a one-child policy," or gas from Russia must be labeled, "This is gas from a country that illegally occupies Crimea," or products from the United States require the labeling, "The U.S. engages in capital punishment and is building an illegal border wall"? I mean, that's some of the things that could be said. Product labels will have become political billboards depending on the whims of EU politicians, and every EU importer will shoulder a liability for not complying with arbitrary labeling laws. So that's what we're considering here. Now, why am I saying this? because the book of Daniel, chapter 12, verse 1, talks about a time of great tribulation such as never has been before, nor ever will be. And it's a time that's just ahead. Jesus also talked about it. In Matthew 24, he talked about a time called the Great Tribulation that will occur in the final 3.5 years just before the Battle of Armageddon and the second coming of Jesus Christ to this earth. Now, why are we mentioning it? We're not going to stop it. Of course, we're not going to stop it. We can warn people. They can move. They can get in a different situation. They can get out from the influence of the European Union. So there are some things that they can do. But also, this tells the whole world that Bible prophecy is coming to pass. I mean, we never thought we would be thinking about another Jewish Holocaust, especially coming out of Europe where the last one came from. But guess what? Here it is, staring us in the face. All right, now, I want to go now to the final 7 years. This article appeared in Israel National News just today. Greenblatt, who is the special envoy to the Middle East, along with Jared Kushner, Jason Greenblatt, has this article coming from Israel National News. Trump hasn't yet decided when to unveil the peace plan. Now, all of you know that half of the peace plan, the economic portion, was unveiled on June the 23rd, and then they had a big summit June the 25th and 26th with 20 nations present, talking about how all this could be implemented economically if they can get the political part of it. But President Trump has not unveiled the political part of the plan yet. He's wanted to a couple of times, but Benjamin Netanyahu has asked him not to. Well, here's what's happening now. U.S. President Donald Trump has not yet decided whether to unveil his Middle East peace plan before or after Israeli elections set for next month. The date is September the 17th. This article, according to Jason Greenblatt, he might even decide to go ahead and unleash the plan before the elections on September the 17th. That was on Bloomberg television. That was in an interview that took place on Monday. Greenblatt also said that the U.S. hopes eventually to engage with the Palestinian Authority on an accord, even though it has been boycotting the Trump administration ever since Trump recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital. So they're still holding out there, because when they had the economic summit back in June, they put some big carrots out there. I'm talking about they dangled $50 billion in front of Mahmoud Abbas, saying, if you will work with us, the international community is ready to invest $50 billion. We'll transform your nation, we'll transform your economy, and you're going to have a standard of living equal to the Israelis. Now, that's quite a promise, because right now the Palestinian standard of living is about 1/3 of the normal standard of living for the Israelis. Now, this article goes on to say, we are not looking for regime change. President Abbas is the leader of the Palestinians, so we hope that he will be able to come to the table, Greenblatt told Bloomberg television. We do hope to have continued engagement or an eventual re-engagement with the Palestinian Authority. Greenblatt gave no indication of what the political plan would look like, but said Trump would have to decide soon whether to roll it out before the Israeli elections on September the 17th or after, and whether to wait until after a new government has been formed. So here he is, and here Greenblatt is saying, and we're only, a month and 3 days away or so from the elections, and here he's saying we don't know whether we're going to roll this out before September the 17th or roll it out after September the 17th, or we may even wait until a new government is formed, because once they have the elections on September the 17th, it normally takes 30 to 60 days to put together a coalition and actually install the new government. So here we are. Now, why is all this important? Because Trump's peace plan apparently contains the conditions for a peace agreement between the Palestinians and the Israelis, and it looks like it contains the conditions for the prophecy in the Bible that will trigger the final 7 years to Armageddon. So here I am today discussing with you, is he going to release this peace plan the 17th or after September the 17th? But obviously they're planning on doing it before the end of this year. If in fact they release this plan, and if it creates a Palestinian state or at least Palestinian autonomy, if it puts the Temple Mount under a sharing arrangement, and if it leaves Jerusalem under Israeli control for now, and if it opens up the door for Israel to build her temple on the Temple Mount, that is the agreement that the Bible prophesied about 2,500 years ago, and more prophecies about it 2,000 years ago. This is the agreement that will mark the beginning of the final 7 years to Armageddon. Now, at this point, I start feeling like screaming to make sure everybody gets it, because we're talking about the greatest prophetic fulfillment in the last 2,000 years. We're talking about you and me entering the final 7 years to the physical second coming of Jesus Christ to this earth. How much more dramatic could it be? It's incredible. It's amazing. Now, I want to pause, and I know I've been beating this drum, but I'm going to beat it again today. You've got to get yourself ready, because those final 7 years will be the most dramatic, impacting, eventful 7 years since Jesus was here on the earth 2,000 years ago. I mean, this 7 years is going to be like a prairie fire sweeping through our world. The Bible teaches the Antichrist will be revealed during this time, his religious partner, the false prophet. Most of the world will follow this false religion and this one world government, but not all, because God is also going to send his two witnesses, and the Bible teaches we'll see the greatest revival the world has ever known. Will it be as large as the following of the Antichrist? No, it won't, but it will be large. The Bible describes it. I saw a great multitude that no man could number, out of every kindred, every people, every nation, every tongue. I'm telling you, this revival is coming. You will either be a part of it, or you're going to follow the Antichrist and his religious partner, the false prophet. I think I need to say that again. You will either be a part of this revival, or you're going to end up being deceived by the Antichrist. And the Bible teaches that most people are going to be deceived. The Bible says, if possible, the very elect would be deceived. I'm glad the clause, if possible, is in there. Now, I think I have a way to ensure that you will not be deceived. So please listen. We have 11 semesters of our Jerusalem Prophecy College available online today. It's 150 lessons. You can enroll today. If you enroll in these lessons and complete this course, you will not be deceived, because you're going to know everything they're going to do before they ever do it. All you have to do is go to JerusalemProphecyCollege.com, register, enroll in your first course. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you need to get started today. I'm not going to hide anything from you. There is a small tuition. And when I say small, I mean really small. Harvard, I understand, charges up to $40,000 per semester. Other colleges, just the community colleges, charge hundreds, if not thousands of dollars per semester. We're only asking for $59 per semester, and that's just enough to service the college and to keep it going for you. This is not a money-making scheme on Endtime's part. So here's what you do. Go to JerusalemProphecyCollege.com and get going. And I would suggest you set aside at least a half an hour per day. That's all. Even if you got to get up a half an hour earlier to do it. And get through this course as fast as you can. If you get through the first half, that's going to help you tremendously, because it's going to give you a real knowledge of the importance of this peace agreement that President Trump is pushing. Now, can I promise you that Trump's, what he calls deal of the century, is going to be accepted? I cannot. But it looks like to me it's going to. I've been following this for a long, long time. And I've developed a sense for it. It looks like to me we are coming to the crossroads, the apex of the funnel. I think there's a strong possibility that you and I could enter the final 7 years in 2020, possibly even early 2020. So if you're not enrolled in Jerusalem Prophecy College, all I'm saying to you is do it, and do it now, and get started today. Do your first lesson tonight. It's that critical. It's that important. So sorry I had to go on this little tirade, but I just had to, because I know how important it really is to all of us. It's going to be important unless you have the knowledge. The Bible prophesies about you. It's in Daniel chapter 11, verse 33. It says, the people that do know their God shall be strong and do exploits, and they that understand among the people shall instruct many. If you don't understand, you're not going to be instructing anybody. So if you want to be able to guide your family, your friends, your neighbors, your relatives, your coworkers, your churches, then you got to get this material, because most people are appallingly ignorant, including most church people. And I'm sorry to say, even most clergy, most pastors are so ignorant of these things. I'm not in any way slurring them. I'm just simply saying that is the case. So one more time, JerusalemProphecyCollege.com. Register, enroll in your first course each semester. If you go to normal pace, it'll take you about maybe 2 to 3 months, but you need to go faster than that if you possibly can. Okay, continuing on, Greenblatt says this conflict will only be resolved by direct negotiations between the parties. It's not for the United States or the European Union or the United Nations to demand how this conflict can be resolved. The peace initiative, partially unveiled at a Bahrain conference in June, I already mentioned that, dangled the prospect of pumping $50 billion worth of investment into the Palestinian Authority economy. All right. Now then, let's go to the next step, because Israel's heading toward these elections, and a very interesting thing just happened over the weekend. Israel was celebrating one of their main holidays. It's called Tisha B'Av, and what it is, they mourn the destruction of the first temple and the second temple. Well, they wanted to go up onto the Temple Mount, and they were promised they could go up. They arrived at 7:30 in the morning, but the police stopped them. Now, Islam that particular day started one of their special holidays called the Feast of Sacrifice. This is when they say that Abraham took Ishmael up to offer him on the Temple Mount as a sacrifice. Of course, it wasn't Ishmael at all. Anybody that knows their Bible knows that Abraham offered Isaac. But nevertheless, they've changed, they rewrite history to meet their own particular purposes. And so they celebrate for 4 days, and their celebration started on Sunday, which was the day of Tisha B'Av. So the Jews wanted to be up on the Temple Mount, and the Muslims wanted to be up there. Here's a little bit of what happened. Islamic Jihad and Hamas threatened increased violence after 1,729 Jewish worshippers ascended the Temple Mount Sunday, according to police numbers cited by the Internal Security Ministry. Now, first of all, they stopped them from going. They stood there in the hot sun all day long until late in the afternoon. Finally, they had about 6,000 Muslims up there on the Temple Mount, which is a big, big crowd. Apparently, a lot of the Muslims left. Anyway, the Jews made the decision. The opposition parties to Netanyahu it was being reported that Netanyahu is the one that gave the order not to open the Temple Mount to the Jews. So they were making speeches all over Israel about that and how disappointed they were that they couldn't go up on the Temple Mount to mourn the destruction of their first temple and their second temple. Well, finally, in the afternoon, the doors were open to the Jews. They only got 2 hours to visit. Now, here's what's so amazing. In 2 hours, 1,729 Jewish worshipers went onto the Temple Mount. Last year, they had 4 hours, and they had 1,400. Well, this year, they had only 2 hours, and they had 1,729. Used to, they had nobody. What's going on here? Jews are determined. They are not going to accept not being able to pray on the Temple Mount and not being able to build their temple. They're ready to build their temple right now. They have the architectural drawings. They have all the furniture ready. All of this is prophesied in your Bible. Now, some people say, oh, everything's the same as I've always heard about the coming of Jesus and all that. And everything's the same as it's always been. Oh, no, terribly wrong. Anybody that says that is simply uneducated in these affairs. I'm telling you, we've never been here before. When they've got all the furniture ready, they got all the utensils ready, they have young priests in training to know how to do the sacrifices. And in the spring, they offered a Passover sacrifice. They asked to do it on the Temple Mount, but the government did not allow them to do that. So they had it off-site. They also did the same thing last year. But at this year's Passover sacrifice, one of the main people involved said, we have 600 here today. We're looking forward to the time we have 10,000, and we will do it on the Temple Mount. And they will. They are going to do it. It's prophesied in detail. You and I are living in the most exciting prophetic times ever. So what good is that to us? We can use this if we can articulate the prophecies and explain how they're coming to pass right now. Then it can cause people to believe the Bible. And when they believe the Bible, they'll believe that they need salvation. They'll believe the words of Jesus. Except a person is born again, he cannot enter the kingdom of God. So this is going to be the fuel that's going to fire the greatest revival the world has ever seen. Can you imagine? Let's say next year they sign this peace agreement and we can announce to the world, you just entered the final 7 years to Armageddon. And then imagine a few months later, Israel starts building her temple on the Temple Mount. Can you imagine what the world's going to be like when that temple starts heading up and the whole world sees it over television? It is going to be a wake-up call. Well, we need to understand all these things. If you want to understand, then go to JerusalemProphecyCollege.com, enroll today, and get started in your first course. Whoa. Do I sound like I'm out of breath? It's because I am. How about what incredible times we live in? Stay with us. We'll be back.
Move Mountains with Irvin Baxter. This book by Irvin's grandson provides 30 days of devotion that will enhance your relationship with God and others. Authentic illustrations from early morning devotions at Endtime will help you find your purpose and eliminate fears. Commit to taking this 30-day journey and experience real life change. Get your book for only $14.99. Call 1-800-363-8463 or go to endtime.com/move.
If ever people needed to hear the unvarnished truth, it is now. There are some subjects that are not politically correct to talk about, but they're urgent. That's why I'm grateful for Endtime magazine. If you're not a subscriber, you're missing information that will impact your life. Endtime has a bi-monthly magazine that explains how current events are fulfilling Bible prophecy. You can get a 2-year subscription for only $29. You can also get a bulk subscription and pass them out to your church. We have gotten reports that Endtime magazine has caused spiritual awakenings in churches when they see the prophecies being fulfilled right now. You can start your own ministry and leave them in doctor's offices, libraries, laundromats. You never know if you might be responsible for saving someone who is searching for the unvarnished truth. That's what the magazine has done in many lives. Call 1-800-ENDTIME. That's 1-800-363-8463 and get your subscription today.
If your station only carries the first 30 minutes of End of the Age, go to endtime.com and click the watch button to continue today's broadcast. You can also finish up later by clicking the archive button.
We do want to take your calls on this part of the program, and one of our main technicians is on vacation this week, Jim Stiglman, but I'm saying to all of our controllers back there, if you'll please have our call screeners to give me a call on Skype for Business. I'll answer and we'll get set up so I can see your phone calls coming through and we'll be able to take your calls. While they're taking care of that, let's talk a little bit more about what's going on. Okay, so Islam, they wanted the Temple Mount all of themselves. They always do. They don't want any Jews there at any time whatsoever. However, they are not able to have their way because the Jewish government is becoming more and more assertive. Now, let me wind back the clock because I've been going to Israel since 1993 every year. At first, when we went there were absolutely no Jews visiting the Temple Mount. Then after a while, you'd hear about 3 or 4 Jews going up there with police escorts. And the Muslims would chant Allahu Akbar. They'd get around them and chant it so loud until you couldn't even hear yourself talk. They even hired people full-time to do that. Well, finally, little by little, the Jewish government got tired of that, and they arrested those people, took them away. And then they kept building. Now, I remember when the first announcement was made that 100 Jews had visited the Temple Mount that year. It was considered a big, big milestone. Well, it kept building. It went to 300, then 500, then 1,000. I'll never forget in 2017, they said we had 16,000 people, Jews, visit the Temple Mount this year of 2017. And then the first 6 months of 2018, they had 18,000 in 6 months. Well, now here they had 1,729 in one day. What's going on? The Jews know they've got to assert their right over the Temple Mount, or else they're going to be left out. And all this is pushing this to the forefront. There is not going to be a peace agreement without selling the Temple Mount ownership, because the Jews, let's remember, this is the place where God sent Abraham to raise the knife over Isaac, and God supernaturally stopped him from doing that. And then later on, this is where the first temple was built. And when Solomon dedicated the first temple, fire fell from heaven on the sacrifice as it was offered there on the altar. And that was the center of Jewish life for the next 400 years until it was destroyed in 586 BC by Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians. And then the second temple was rebuilt after 70 years of exile. The Jews came back. The second temple was rebuilt they actually finished it around 516 BC. That's the temple that stood until 70 AD when the Romans destroyed the second temple. Okay, so the Jewish people every year mourn this destruction. Now then, they're back in control. In 1968, the Jewish people conquered the Temple Mount after Jordan had attacked them. They counterattacked. They took possession of the Temple Mount and also drove the Jordanians all the way across the Jordan River. And they've been in control of the Temple Mount ever since. But Israel's secular government was afraid to really take control. They left the heathen sites that were there, the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. These sites are built to a God that does not exist. And I want to say this today. I'm not here to slam Muslims, but I'm also here to tell the truth. The Muslim religion is a false religion because they deny that Jesus is God, and therefore Jesus was God, manifest in the flesh. They also deny that Jesus died on the cross. They say, oh no, that's all made up. Somebody rewrote the Bible. We don't believe that. So they take out the core of Christianity, the act of salvation, of being born again. If Jesus never died on the cross, then the blood of Jesus Christ means nothing to you and me, and it's the very center of our salvation. So anyway, now, I'm not slamming Muslims. A lot of them, I'm sure, are sincere. But I still would love to tell them the wonderful news that they can be relieved from all guilt, all condemnation, and they can have the wonderful peace that only comes. Nevertheless, when the Jews took over the Temple Mount in 1967, they left all of these shrines there, these Muslim shrines, and they put the Temple Mount back under control of the Muslim Waqf. And it's been that way now since 1967. Well, now here we are, and the Jews more and more are saying, we've got to rebuild our temple. The Bible tells us we've got to do it. And so they're pushing 1,729 of them on Sunday laid claim to that, even though the Muslims met them there and tried to throw rocks at them and tried to stop them. The Jewish police beat them back, pushed them away, and allowed the Jewish worshipers to worship. So we're in a huge transition right now. It's going to culminate with what the Bible prophesies. It's going to culminate in the Jewish people gaining control over part of the Temple Mount. The Bible teaches the Temple Mount will be shared between Jews and Muslims, and the Jewish people will build their temple on the Jewish-controlled sector of the Temple Mount. The Bible tells us that explicitly, and they will complete the temple within the first 3.5 years after the peace agreement is concluded and signed. So that's where we are right now, and that's what all these articles that are appearing all the time. Let me give you just a little bit more here from this article. Israel is trying to impose a new reality in the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and there will be repercussions for it. Islamic Jihad official Fouad al-Razm said, "We are tracking Israel's steps," said Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh. "This is a violation of the rights of millions of Muslims." Police early morning announced that the Temple Mount would be closed to Jews despite Sunday being the Jewish fast day of Tisha B'Av, which commemorates the destruction of the first and second temples in Jerusalem. Police first blamed Prime Minister Netanyahu, who denied he was involved. The gate was supposed to open at 7:30, but the police is showing weakness and fear and has not yet announced whether to open the gate to Jewish visitors for fear of rioting by local Muslims, tweeted Mariev's Avishai Grinzag. The increase in Jewish visitors increased over the numbers last year when 1,440 Jews visited. Temple Mount activist groups said the increase was especially significant given that the site was open for just 2 hours to Jews this year because of the earlier closure, whereas it had been open for 4 hours in 2018. I've already told you a few of those things. Then finally, the Interior Security Minister Gilad Erdan said he thanked police commander of the Jerusalem district, Doron Yedid, "From the bottom of my heart for having managed Sunday's events with responsibility and courage and for having implemented policies planned last week. I will continue to work." And let me just take a moment right here to respond. "I will continue to work to strengthen Israel and Israeli control over the Temple Mount as I have done over the last 4 years, in which time the number of visitors has increased 3.5 times. Police first barred Jews from entering since this year. The Jewish holiday coincides with the Muslim holiday of Eid al-Adha, which is the festival of sacrifice where the Jews celebrate Abraham raising the knife over Ishmael, which is what they say. They wanted to prevent friction. Some 80,000 Muslims gathered on the site by morning for their special day. I said 6,000. I was wrong. 80,000 Muslims were up on the Temple Mount Sunday morning. However, the police there were able to possibly wait till their crowds dissipated. Perhaps they went back home. And finally, the police said, now the Jews are going to have their chance. And although many Muslims stayed around to try to block the Jews, they were not successful. Finally, the article goes on to say Israel bears full responsibility for storming Al-Aqsa and fueling religious tensions in Jerusalem, said PLO official Dr. Hanan Daud Mikhail Ashrawi. Ashrawi attacked Israeli politicians, claiming that to score points in the election season, the Israeli politicians are competing on who can exhibit higher levels of aggression and hostility against the Palestinian people during this important religious holiday. So Ashrawi actually brings politics into it. Okay, I see we're all set up now to take your calls, so let's get ready to go there. First of all, we're going to... let's go to Robert calling from Colorado. Hello, Robert.
Hello, you there?
I am here, Robert. What's on your mind?
Oh, it was a loud noise. Sorry about that.
Okay.
I appreciate the show, Brother Irvin, and appreciate all your efforts educating the people. My question would be, at the one of the precursors to World War II was the Italian-Ethiopian War, in which Italy illegally invaded Ethiopia in efforts to try to find the Ark of the Covenant at Lalibela. But my question would be, why is no one talking about the warnings that Haile Selassie gave against the NWO, going as early as 1941? He was giving warnings about what's going on. Is it maybe because his instruction was to receive Jesus, Jesus Christos, and to abide by the Ten Commandments, that which includes the Sabbath, the true Sabbath. So maybe is that why no one's talking about the warnings that the last Christian king on the face of the earth, which actually was the first Christian nation, Ethiopia, as we go back to Philip and the Ethiopian nobleman, why no one's talking about the warnings that Haile Selassie gave to the nations in many speeches?
Let me break in on you here, Robert, before we get to our next
Sure.
break. One reason nobody's talking about it is because most of them favor a one-world governmental system referred to as the New World Order. They've sort of dropped that term because they know it's become a hot button, but President George Herbert Walker Bush boldly announced that we've got a real chance at this New World Order. He did that a couple of months after the Berlin Wall came down, and they announced that the Cold War was over. And so there's a lot of talk. Hitler talked about the New World Order back when he was taking power. He had an ambition to have a one world government or a New World Order. He used the term New World Order. So, but a lot of
It
people are
wasn't
not
really
talking.
used back then, right? That word wasn't, the New World Order wasn't a catchphrase or a commonly known term at that point. It was basically called fascist forces illegally had invaded Ethiopia, and they really wanted to try to find the Ark of the Covenant at Lalibela, but
Well, listen,
why
Robert,
is no one really
I'm up
talking
against
about it?
I'm up against our next break, so I'm going to have to let you go. But you asked an important question. Why are the preachers not talking about it? Why are the politicians not talking about it? Now, Trump is talking about it. He's talking against globalism, and that's another name for the New World Order. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back to take more of your calls in just a moment.
Many Christians admit end-time Bible prophecy is very complex and difficult to understand, and for some, a little bit scary. But what if you could understand Bible prophecy? What if you could know what will happen and how the United States will play a key role during end-time events? When you call today and get Understanding the End Time DVD curriculum, you can have peace about what is to come while understanding the prophetic events that appear in our headlines every day. When you call or go online to endtime.com and order, you'll learn the answer to the biggest prophecy question of all. Will the rapture take place, and when will it happen? This 14-part DVD series is the definitive end-time prophecy Bible study available. And for this limited time, you can get it for just $149. Don't miss this special offer. Understanding the End Time. Call now, 1-800-363-8463. That's 1-800-END-TIME. Or go to endtime.com today.
Oh, what incredible times we're living in. I want to go way over to India today. Patrick is calling from India. Hello, Patrick.
Hello?
You're on the air, Patrick.
Yes, good evening, sir. I'm
Good.
calling from Nigeria, not India, Nigeria.
Okay, very good. Well, what's on your mind today?
Yes, I have been listening to your program for the past 2 years, and I've been able to ask questions twice. But this is my third time to ask you questions.
Well, good.
Yes, my question is, those who will accept the mark of the beast, we know that they will not make heaven. But would they be allowed to live into the millennium?
Patrick, I'm not sure I can answer that question completely. I can tell you, though, what the Bible says. In
Yes.
Revelation chapter 14, verse 9 through 11, it says, whoever takes the mark of the beast or worships his image, these will be tormented forever in the presence of the Holy Lamb and the presence of the angels. And the smoke of their torment ascendeth up day and night. They have no rest day nor night. So according to that scripture, whoever takes the mark of the beast is going to end up being eternally lost.
Yes. I have been wondering, though I've not been able to lay my hand on the scripture, whether they will live in the millennium, but I think they will not live in the millennium. But I don't know whether they will all perish at the Battle of Armageddon or so. That's my puzzle. I've been wondering about it.
Yeah, well, the Battle of Armageddon, of course, is what begins the millennium. It's what ends this particular age we're living in. And that's when Jesus Christ will come. And that's when the world will be judged. And, of course, like I said there in Revelation 14, verse 9 through 11, it specifically states that those people who worship the beast and take his mark, that they will be given eternal damnation. So that's something none of us want to do and we should never do.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. We appreciate your call and keep listening from around the world. Thank you so much. Let's go now to Bob calling from Texas. Hello, Bob.
Hello, Pastor Baxter. How are you today?
I'm doing just fine. Thank you very much.
Wonderful, wonderful. I had a question about the Antichrist and the peace agreement.
Okay.
From what I'm understanding in Daniel 9:27, I believe, the Antichrist will be the one that confirms this peace agreement that we're all looking for Donald Trump to put in place. Now, Donald Trump cannot be the Antichrist. So in my mind, whatever Trump comes up with is not going to be what is put into place.
Well, except for one thing, Bob. The Bible says he will confirm the covenant with many for 7 years. So we can already see this thing shaping up, that Trump is bringing many people to this table. I mean, Saudi Arabia, when they had their meeting back in June 25 and 26, there were 20 nations that came there to participate in the unveiling of Trump's economic portion of his plan. So when it says he will confirm the covenant with many, it appears that means there's going to be many participants. Saudi Arabia was there, Egypt was there, Jordan, United Arab Emirates, Morocco, many other nations were represented there. So even though perhaps it's Trump's plan, but yet perhaps when it comes on the scene, the Antichrist, whoever he is, will say, yes, I agree with this, and he will confirm the covenant with many. That's the best I can tell you. And again, I cannot tell you absolutely that Trump's plan is the one that's going to be adopted, but it's certainly the only game in town right now. And it looks like all of the elements of the prophecy will probably be in his plan. Now, we don't know what the plan looks like yet, but we should know what it looks like within the next couple of months. So it's going to be very interesting when they publish his plan to look at it and see if it meets the criteria of the Bible. And then if it does not, that doesn't mean anything, because his plan will only become the basis for negotiation. If the Palestinians and the Israelis, if they will agree on most things, then they can negotiate changes to the plan that Trump has come up with. So it would no longer really be Trump's plan once they do the negotiation, because Greenblatt said in the article I read from today that it is not going to be the United Nations, it's not going to be the European Union, it's not going to be the United States. This deal ultimately will be between the Palestinians and the Israelis, but it looks like many world leaders are going to be involved. Probably Russia will be involved with Vladimir Putin, and who knows who all else will be there. So I understand what you're saying. I've wrestled with this question for a long time, but it looks like to me that it could be Trump's plan, but after the negotiations, it could become a plan accepted by the Palestinians and the Israelis, and it could fulfill. We'll just have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, I know that the Palestinians are resisting anything to do with Trump and negotiations, so I figured, well, somehow or another this is going to flip. Someone else is going to be taking, the lead in it instead of Trump in this negotiation, and then that will finally lead to it, and then that will tell us who the Antichrist is.
Yeah, well, Mahmoud Abbas has already said who he wants to take the lead. He wants Vladimir Putin of Russia to take the lead because he sees Putin as being the protector of the Arabs, and he sees America as being the protector of the Jews. And therefore, he wants, and way back in 1991 when they had the Oslo Peace Accords, guess who was there? The Palestinians, including Jordan, a lot of Jordan is Palestinian, and the United States and Russia. Those were the key people that played the role in what resulted in the Oslo Peace Accords. So Russia and the U.S. played a central role back then. Would not surprise me to see the same thing again.
Hey, I appreciate all the information. I'm glad to see you back. I missed you.
Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate that so very much. And let's go now to Debbie calling from Oklahoma. Hello, Debbie.
Hi, Dr. Baxter.
What's on your mind today?
Baxter?
Yes.
So nice to visit with you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I have two questions. One regarding the red heifer. I think you had mentioned that there were 3 red cows born last August 28th, one being a male, 2 being a heifers. One heifer, I think you said, was blemished, and one was blemish free. Is that still as is? Is that heifer still unblemished?
I have been consistently searching for answers to those questions. As of right now, I've gotten no indication that they've come up with a blemish in her. I have not received any confirmation, pro or con, for a while. Now, actually, there were 5 cows that had calves in 2018. The main one we're hearing about is the 3rd one that was born, like you mentioned, that was, the rabbis came, looked her over from nose to the end of her hoofs and to her tail, and said that she was kosher, that she would qualify as the red heifer. We've not received an update that I know of, and I've been looking for it. I haven't found it yet. When I go back to Israel in November, I'd like to go to the Temple Institute and find someone there that I could probe a little bit and see if I can get firsthand information as to how that stands right now.
Okay. My thought is that it's still unblemished because there's too many things occurring. You know what I'm saying, Dr. Baxter?
Yeah, there's
In other
so many.
words, I think it's ready.
There's so many things converging right now from every direction. It does look
Right.
like it's time to me. We'll have to wait and see.
I know. Also, the next question is in the book of Daniel. I know the 4 beasts, the lion, which is Great Britain, and it had the eagle's wings, the bear, Russia, the 4-headed leopard, and it also had the wings of the fowl, which is France. Now, I know that you have said that Emmanuel Macron, which Emmanuel means God with us, and Macron is means Mark, and that he has assembled the 10-nation coalition. And in that 10 nations, I noticed that you had said that France is, of course, since it's Emmanuel Macron, France is going to be one of the 10.
Yes.
Great Britain is in Germany with Spain, Finland, Denmark, the Netherlands, Portugal, Estonia, and Belgium.
Yes.
What I do not hear in that is where is Russia? My thought, I'm maybe way out in left field, but that's okay too, is that maybe Russia would be the country that would come in and uproot 3, and it would be Putin possibly as the Antichrist.
Well, that's certainly possible, and of course, like you say, Debbie, we're only talking about possibilities here because until it's actually fulfilled, we can't speak with absolute certainty. But
Right.
we do know Russia is going to be a part of the one world governmental system, and also right now we see Germany moving away from America and moving toward Russia. They're buying most of their natural gas from Russia right now because you see, most of Europe is socialistic, and so they feel more of an affinity to Russia, which is mostly socialistic, than they do America, because Donald Trump is fighting against socialism with all of his might. So consequently, we find ourselves on opposite sides of the fence. And of course, that's a good thing. We don't want to go into socialism because the kingdom of the Antichrist is going to be a socialist government. But it's amazing that we have serious candidates. Matter of fact, most of the Democratic Party will boldly say they're for socialism right now. So I never thought I would see one whole party end up giving themselves over to socialism, but it certainly looks like that's what we're watching right now.
Well, I have been a Democrat my full life. A year ago this October, I have changed to the Republican Party. Of course, I've not always voted Democrat, and now it just blows my mind to think what the Democrats stand for. I just think that this is a spiritual battle going on between the two parties.
Well, it is a spiritual battle, and we got to keep in our minds that is what it is. We're not fighting against people, really. No. The Bible says we do not fight against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, and spiritual wickedness in high places. So we are in a tremendous battle. Fortunately, we do have the guidance of the Bible to let us know where we're headed, and that is that the eagle is not in the world government as is depicted in Revelation 13:1 and 2, but instead we show up defending Israel against the Antichrist and his world government in Revelation chapter 12, verse 13 and 14. So we're really blessed in that score. But we can't sit idly by and twiddle our thumbs. We have to do God's work with all of our might in the days that are just ahead. Okay, Debbie, you bring up some interesting things. Let me see. I'm afraid I do not have time to take any more calls. We have quite a number of callers yet on the screen, but we are out of time, and I have to take time to say to all of you out there, please don't just listen to this program. Get involved. Maybe you've been thinking about being a partner with Endtime Ministries. Do it. All you have to do is call us, 800-END-TIME, and our people will guide you through that, 1-800-END-TIME. If you would prefer to do it online, simply go to endtime.com. I think there's a place there that says Become a Partner, and just click that. You can do whatever you want to do in the privacy of your own home. Now, here's the more important thing. Please enroll in the Jerusalem Prophecy College. We need an army. We had 200 in November of 2017. We've grown to 3,300 today. We want to hit 5,000 by the end of this year, and I want you to be one of the 5,000. So don't let us down. Give us a call. Go to JerusalemProphecyCollege.com. If you'd like to have the Understanding End Time series, then call us, 800-END-TIME. God bless you all. We'll see you again tomorrow.
This has been End of the Age, brought to you by the faithful partners of Endtime Ministries. If you're not currently a partner with Endtime Ministries, or if you would like more information, we invite you to call us at 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-363-8463, or visit us online at endtime.com.
Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel and like our Facebook page.